Hello, my wonderful friends. I hope we're all doing good. It's time for yet another story. There's another one from our friend Destroya. Unknowingly entering a hoarder's home. Oh, fuck, I have done that more than once. This is going to be an interesting story. Hello, Moonhorse.
Hi.
I have another story that happened a few years back during my construction days. I have a few stories like that, too. So myself and my father do small and large jobs as a side job, from adding power outlets, mounting drywall, building sheds, doing stuff like that. Make pretty good money. Yeah, contracting. I used to do contracting, too. It does make good money, but it's a lot of hard work, which is kind of why I don't do it anymore. One day, a friend of my dad's, who's the most chill person I'd ever met, it's a really awesome guy, wanted a few jobs done for him. He asked us to help this family member of his with a leaky pipe. Seems like a pretty simple job, right? Well, we meet the family member, a middle-aged woman, kind of short. She's nice. Her son's a chunky little 18-year-old kid. And they give us the details and give us a date when to show up. Okay, cool. We arrive, tools in hand, ready to start the day. And this lady led us into, oh dear God. Oh, there are no words. Trash, clothes, dog food, dog shit, and God knows what else everywhere. Waist high, and the smell is unbelievable. I can't even begin to describe it. She just stares at us, smiling like there's just nothing wrong. She guides us through this little path, and we see where the leak is, and I guess was the kitchen. It's hard to tell as there's just stuff everywhere. And we see this leak, and, well, we're kind of confused. The pipe is exposed as the drywall and the wood around it have rotted away. Oh, wow. The whole ceiling was gone, rotten, and I'm pretty sure moldy. Still, she's just smiling like, oh, this is normal. So I take a step forward, and I stepped on something, and all I know is I heard it squish, and it was incredibly slimy. I look down, and it's a carton of rotten eggs, and there are... Oh, I'm throwing up a little in my mouth there. That's disgusting. There are bugs, and the smell is immediate, and I just lost it and bolted for the door. I ran out, washed the fuck out of my shoe with the garden hose. After a while, my dad comes out and tells me that we're not doing this. And she's still just expecting us to get it done. And so how long does it take to fix? She said, looking at us. And we politely tried to explain to her that we're just not going to do this. English was not her first language, so I don't think that she fully got it. I'm sorry, we just can't do this. The house is a mess, and fixing the pipe is the least of your worries if the wood is rotten like that. We just not qualified for a job like this. Oh, well then you come back next week. We just nodded and kind of bailed. My dad told his friend of the situation, and apparently he didn't even know that the house was like that. That opened up a whole can of shit, so... We never did go back, and due to the pandemic, we don't do jobs like that anymore. I hope that lady got some help and is living in a nice, cleaner environment now. Whew, boy. Okay. That's, yeah. So, there's two separate stories that I can tell here, one of which you guys probably already know. Most of you anyway, if you're familiar with some of my personal neckbeard encounter stories, but I didn't really talk about when I worked construction. So my dad used to own a little contracting group. It was like him, myself, and maybe like 4 other people. So we're not like, working big time construction or anything like that. We're just a couple of guys who, hey, I got this job, I need 4 people. Okay, cool. Pretty simple shit, right? And I did that for a while in the early 2000s because, I didn't have a job at the time, and that was a pretty standard and pretty good living. You do make good money, I won't lie about that. Contracting work does pay really good, but after a while, it tends to wear you the fuck down. And, oh dear God, did it ever. So we worked this job. We worked this job out of New Orleans. This guy bought this duplex, and the two people who lived in this duplex on either side, because again, duplex, they're gone. But there's a slight hiccup to this. See, the owner, or new owner now, wants the place completely renovated, and he has all these ideas on how to do this, and he wants this all done because he's convinced that the college kids who are going to be coming in to this area, because there's a bunch of colleges around here, will absolutely rent this duplex. I don't know how positive he is on that or where he came up with those exact ideas, but, you know, whatever, he hired us, so we'll do it. So, if you haven't ever hired a contractor before or haven't ever worked with construction before, let me tell you something that most construction workers won't tell you because it's just not polite to say, but I'm Moonhorse and I will say whatever the fuck. If you're wanting someone to, for example, paint an entire room, or redo the drywall, or redo the floors, and if they come in and there's still furniture in the room, yeah, no, most of the time they'll tell you no, and they'll probably say something like, oh, we're not qualified for a job like that. But the actuality is, they know what you're trying to do. This guy did exactly that. See, it wasn't just that we had to redo all the drywall and redo all this other stuff and redo all this, you know, tear out all this plaster and all these other things. No, we also had to move his fucking furniture in a duplex. So that's two separate apartments full of furniture that had to be scraped out and redone. I fucking hate when people do that. Because you didn't hire a mover, you hired a contractor. If you needed a mover, hire a mover. Just because they're there to do construction work for you doesn't mean that they're your fucking puppet. So if you needed to have this done, get it done beforehand. One of the things that, this is on a little tangent, but one of the things that I hated was we used to rent this house a couple years back, and when the AC went out, the guy had to go up in the attic, but the people who made the attic ladder, it wasn't the homeowner, you know, who we're renting from or anything like that. It's a prefab attic ladder, which means they didn't have any idea, so it's not their fault. It's just that the people who made it put the steps into the ladder using nails, which is, in basic construction terms, really fucking stupid. Because when you put enough weight on it, the nails just come the fuck out. And yeah, that's pretty much what happened. This guy was trying to go up to fix our air conditioner, and the fucking steps just broke off. And he had to go get a second ladder so he could get up and down and do it. Now, to his credit, he was a nice guy, very jovial, and really wanted to get this job done. He helped out, and he did save us a lot. I was just fucking embarrassed that that happened. Because I don't like doing that. If I have to have somebody come help do something, you know, on my property, I make sure that the work site is at least cleaned and prepped before they have to do it, so they can get in, get the job done, and get out with no problem. Because it's not their fucking, you know, job to clean this shit up. They're not janitors, they're contractors, or, you know, they're construction workers or something. It's not their fucking, you know, thing to clean this up. Now, working as a contractor, we would clean up the job site. I made that mess. I cut that board. I'm the one who left the sawdust, so yes, I'm going to clean it up. That's basic and understanding. But if the mess is already there by the time somebody gets there, that's just fucking rude. Don't do that. Now, with all that being said, one of the main rules that my dad had, and his friends in this group kind of agreed, is we don't work on hoarder houses. One, because it's incredibly dangerous. You don't know what's in there. You don't know what could hurt you. You don't know, you know, what's in whatever pile or how dangerous that could be. And even if the homeowner, you know, insists it's totally fine, they don't know. It's an enormous pile of stuff that's been there for years. You don't know that. You can't say that for certain. So one of the main rules is no hoarder houses. On more than one occasion, because that's a thing, I've been with my dad. We show up to a job site and they want something done on the inside, like, oh, replace this window, or I think one of them was like, they wanted him to redo this banister, like it broke or something, and when he opened the door, like when the homeowner opened the door to let us in and he saw the amount of stuff in it, he straight out told the guy, like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm sorry, I can't. That's just the breaks. And yeah, that may have made some people angry and, you know, lost a few jobs, but it's not safe. As you just heard in this story, that leaky pipe was the least of their problems. If your roof is coming down like that, if the wood around it is fucking rotten, there's no telling if that pipe is the only thing holding up that section. And if you loosen it, if you wouldn't severely get injured in the process. There's a whole list of things you have to do when you work construction that are all about safety, and it's because of shit like that. The reason why there are whole commissions on safety and rules and special gear is because you don't fucking know. You want to say that those 4 load-bearing beams are going to be more than enough to hold up whatever wall is there, but you don't fucking know that. You don't know what condition those beams are in. You literally just opened this wall. You've never seen these beams before. They could, or they could all just fucking snap like toothpicks. There's a whole thing about that. And safety is number one, especially when you're working with literal fucking power tools. Them things is dangerous, bro. Now, my own experience with hoarder houses has, I've seen a few. Probably more than I should have. Most people that I know, go their whole life with either not seeing one, or maybe seeing one. I can guesstimate that I've seen maybe 5. I've been in 3. But I know that I've seen 2 others. See, 2 of my exes were also big-time hoarders. Mental illness and hoarding kind of goes hand in hand. I know, you're shocked. So, yeah, I've seen this a lot, and I can understand, like, depression and things like that tend to break you down to the point where you just can't get things organized. You can't get stuff put away in a proper way. And I've been there. I had severe depression, and for the longest time, I had one whole corner of the room that I used to live in was jam-packed with stuff because I couldn't keep it in the shed. People kept breaking into my shed and stealing my fucking tools. And I didn't want them to steal my tools, so when we moved here, I actually had all this space. Moving here was a first big step in getting better. And my mental health was a lot better after that. But a lot of hoarding can be traced back to mental illness and things like that. And a lot of times, the people who suffer with that kind of thing really are obstinate about changing or doing anything. There's, I'm sure by now most of you already know that there was a show, or maybe there still is, about hoarders, but if you've only seen like the highlights where they're just like, look how horrible this house is and stuff like that, actually watch some of the full episodes when they talk to therapists and they talk to psychiatrists and psychologists who analyze these kind of things. And you'll hear that, like, yeah, it is a mental disorder. It very much is. There is a huge amount of that. And Mew had a whole house like that. His whole family was like that. I'm sure Mew also had some other issues, which I didn't really know specifically. I knew him for a while, but he wasn't exactly very talkative in certain things. But I'm willing to bet that a lot of his habits when it comes to that kind of thing were also hereditary. Because when you grow up in that environment, it affects you. When that's the only thing you know, it becomes the only way that you see, how to behave. Some people don't. There, again, going back to that show, there's a lot of these people's kids who are just like, that's awful. But yeah, on other, other occasions, that's not the way. There's actually one episode of that show that is really, really good that I like, and it is actually about someone in Louisiana. And if you can believe it, I remember watching this early into the lifespan of this channel, because that's when I was really starting to learn about all this neckbeard stuff and things like that, and I shared it with Bubs, and this lady was like a huge hoarder, and she had a son, and I think he lived in Washington or something. I think he was like a journalist or something like that, but he looked like he dressed, looked, and even spoke in all the ways that you would expect like a stereotypical neckbeard to speak, like, you know, really proper, and had the hat and the beard and all this other stuff, but did not, like, as they showed his home, he had no nest. None. And his house was actually very, very nice. And he was like a very, you know, distinguished, proper human being who did like a lot of work, and he, in that episode, specifically remembered growing up in that house and how it was always a mess, and said that that was one of his main motivating factors to get out of that, because he hated it. It made him feel bad. And that, again, goes to show with a lot of, like, you know, the mental stuff, a lot of how mental illness can affect people. This is someone who, knowing what we know about, like, neckbeard archetypes and stereotypes and things like that, would be the kind of person that you would expect, oh, neckbeard nest. But in fact, his house is spotless and he's very articulate, simply because his disgust of living in that environment made him aspire to something better. So, yeah, these things can affect a lot of things. Sometimes they affect good, but in this case, I wouldn't say it's completely good, because he also had a lot of issues with his mom because of it. So I wouldn't call it a win-win situation. I'd call it a somewhat win, but still mostly lose situation. You know, it's good that he, you know, has his own kind of like way of doing things, but also not so good that that's the way he viewed the world and his mom and stuff, because that's not so good. So, yeah, this got on a bit of a tangent. This is a little bit of a longer one, but I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm gonna go ahead and end this episode here, but thanks for being here, and I hope you enjoyed this. I said that already, but fuck it. I love you all so very much, and I'll see you in the next episode. Goodbye!